Okay, so here the Rebbe is going to start talking about what's the chiyuv of simcha that we know about Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. Do we say that about only Adar Sheni or also Adar Rishon? Now, if anybody knows the Rebbe style, by the Rebbe the Simcha starts already, not just on Adar Rishon, not just on the Rosh Chodesh, not only on the first day of Rosh Chodesh, which is Lamed Shvat, so it's not even Adar, not even Erev Rosh Chodesh, but by the Rebbe already on Shabbos Mevarchim, he's already talking about the Simcha of Adar. But L'Poil, the Rebbe in this Sikha wants to be Machriach al Pi Torah, why we should say that the Simcha, Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha, begins from the first Adar. The Gemara, Tainis Tafchav Aleph, says, Kishem Mishnichnas Adar, Memaitem B'Simcha, Kach Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. V'yesh Lavarer, Ha'inyan the Marben B'Simcha, B'Shana Milberes, Im Hu Gam Ba'adar Rishon, Irak Ba'adar Sheni. So this is first of all something that's brought down in Halacha. The Rebbe says in the footnote 1, that is brought down the Magen Avram, that you have to be Marbe B'Simcha. But it didn't say clearly over there which particular Adar, if it's on Shana Mubarak, you have to be Marbe B'Simcha. So the Rebbe is first going to bring a raya to say that it's not Adar Rishon. And it's seemingly going to be a very powerful raya. So l'chura reizem mevor al pi pirish Rashi shmefarish mashkasav gemara mishnichnas Adar Rashi on the words mishnichnas Adar marben b'simcha. So Rashi explains why. So here's an interesting Rashi that the Rebbe is going to analyze. Yemei nisim hayu li Yisrael Purim and Pesach. So from putting together Purim and Pesach. So first of all, when do we do Purim? In Adar Sheni. So therefore, it would make sense, based on this Rashi, the way Rashi explains what the Gemara says, that the reason why Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha is because of Purim and Pesach, and Purim is only in Adar Sheni, so therefore, Mishnichnas Adar goes on Adar Sheni, not on Adar Rishon. But the Rebbe says, Avi Yesh Leimer, Shemepirish Rashi Zem, Ein Raya, V'ad Rabbe, Yesh L'dayik L'hepech, as the Rebbe is going to explain later on the Sikha, that the very fact that he brings in Pesach when he doesn't need to, that itself is going to prove to us that it's Adar Rishon. How? Let's see. Lama moisif Rashi kan Pesach. Ma shayches Pesach lekan. A lot of Mefarshim ask on Rashi. We're talking about Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. Why does Rashi say Yemei Nisim Hayli Yisrael Purim u Pesach? What does Pesach have to do with the Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha? Yesh Mefarshim Sharashi Roit Zolotars B'Zeh Lama Marben B'Simcha Rak B'Chodesh Adar Mebnei Nes Purim V'Loi B'Chodesh Nisim Nei Nisim Pesach. If you're going to do because of Nisim, because it was such a great geula for the Yidden, Pesach was also a big geula for the Yidden. You should also have the idea of Mishnichnas Nisim Marben B'Simcha also. Why not? L'chein Moisev Rashi u Pesach to say you're right. You are Marben B'Simcha Nisim. The Einoch Inami v'gam b'Nisim Marben B'Simcha Machsa Pesach Shabbai. So the Rebbe says you can't learn that way Pshat in Rashi. Avol moving shekashal afarish came by Rashi, kim Rashi ratzaloymer davar chodesh, ubefrat hanegel blamaisa shegam benissen tzorich laharbes besimcha. Avel lelemeimer ze birur veloy lismach sheyavinu azeh meremes b'tevas achas. He added one word. Instead of saying Yemei Nisim Hayil Yisrael Purim, so he added one word Upesach, and from this he's supposed to figure out that means that there's a din of Marben B'Simcha also in this. Rashi is trying to teach you halacha is not going to be cheap on words. There's an expression in Yiddish, is karg mit der Wörter. He's cheap with words. You're not going to be a kamtzen with words in these type of situations. Another problem, if you're going to say, whenever there's a month that has certain geulas, nisim v'niflois, you're going to make the whole month into a mishenichnas, whatever chodesh it is, marben b'simcha. So then, v'oid lefi zeh yitzarech laharves b'simcha, gam b'chodesh kislev, mebnei nes Chanukah. You want to tell me, Purim, you're marben b'simcha because the nisim of Purim. I'm sorry, Adar, you're marben b'simcha because the nisim of Purim. Nisan, you're marben b'simcha because the nisim of Pesach. What about Kislev? Why is there no Mishenichnas Kislev marben b'simcha? And the Rebbe goes on to say, the truth is, there is more reason, if you're just being marba b'simcha because there's Yom Tovim that month, there's more reason to be marba b'simcha in Kislev than in any other month. Va'adrab, mikivin shechanukah ein elam et rabbanon, shedivrei soifrim tzrichim chizuk, hayitzarich laharbes b'simcha yoysim b'nissen. שפסח ומדברי תורה ואין צריכים חיזוק ואפילו יויסר מבאדר שקריאס המגילה בפורים הרי לא סתם דרבנן אל דברי קבלה. So therefore, when it comes to Chanukah, Chanukah is only the Rabbanon, and we know when it comes to the Rabbanon, you have to be mechazik and make an extra strength. There's even a halacha that when it comes to the day before Chanukah, the day after Chanukah, you don't fast. When it comes to the day before Shabbos, the day after Shabbos, or the day before Yom Tov, the day after Yom Tov, you're allowed to fast. How come? Because Yom Tov and Shabbos, since it's Minat Torah, you don't need extra chizuk. You don't have to do something to show. You know you must be b'simcha. Chanukah, since it's Midrabanan, and people might treat it so-so, so you mechazik the simcha of Chanukah, or you mechazik the dinner of Chanukah by saying, you know what? Even the day before Chanukah and the day after Chanukah, you shouldn't fast also. So we see this idea that when it comes to Chanukah, we're going to do more chizuk than a Yom Tov Tzedaraisa. So if you're telling me that Purim, you make the whole month into a month of Simcha. Pesach, according to this pshat in Rashi, you're going to do a whole month of Simcha because of Mishnichnas Nissen for the same reason Mishnichnas Adar. Why do we find this halacha by Kislev? So therefore, that explanation of Rashi doesn't work. That the Rashi is trying to say that in Shenichnas Nissen you're also marben b'simcha, just like because there's Purim and Adar, there's Pesach and Nissen, because then you're going to have the question about Chanukah. So they explain a totally different reason. Yesh mefarshim shekavonas Rashi ba'imri Purim and Pesach. Why? What's Rashi mean to say Purim and Pesach? Not to tell you that Shenichnas Nissen marben b'simcha, but to explain what's so special about Adar that the whole month of Adar we're going to go ahead and be sameach. Hiyoyshe b'chodesh Adar ischilu yemei nisim ritzufim v'tkufim zelazem lachein davke mishnichnas Adar marben b'simcha. You have Purim and then you have Pesach. So it's like so much coming together. So we go, let's go all the way. Mishnichnas Adar marben b'simcha. There's not a whole bunch of events that took place, whereas in Adar there's first Purim and then following that there's Pesach. So therefore we make a big tumult, and that's what Rashi is explaining by saying Yemei Nisim Purim or Pesach, because it would only be Purim. According to this understanding, wouldn't be enough for a reason to say Mishnichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. Aval Gam Zedorish Biur. It's not as difficult as the previous question, but it still needs explanation. Maya shayches hasmiches betoichet ben Pesach v'chodesh Adar shevipnei hasmiches the Adar lePesach hare miyad ba'ascholas Adar marben b'simcha. What's the reason? Why should we go ahead and say that all the way you're going to go 13 days beforehand? Purim comes out on the 14th. Shushan Purim comes out on the 15th. 13 days before, you're already going to start adding in Simcha. Why? Because there's one Nes after another Nes. Purim and Pesach. That's 2 weeks later, Esht. So fine, maybe you should say from Purim until after Pesach, be B'Simcha. But what's it have to do with the beginning of the month? Why is it Mishenichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha? So the Rebbe says, Nois Beis, Va'bir B'Zem, B'Gemar Hanal Isra, the Mishenichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha, Miyad me'ascholos hachodesh marben b'simcha. V'hilkach, it is actually halacha that this is negayin. When you have a court case, Bar Yisrael the Islay Dina Bahadinachri, he has a court case with a guy, Lishtamet b'nei Av. He should avoid going together with him in court in Av. V'limtze nafshi ba'adar, he should make himself available for the court case in the month of Adar. And the Gemara says this halacha is not for Purim. It says stam. You make yourself available in Adar, period. Any day in Adar. Gambas chol sachoidish, even at the beginning of the month of Adar. Why? The bari mazlei, because the mazel of Adar is very strong, so that's why it's a good time for a yid to get into a court case with a guy. So the question still is, okay, we know that this is the halacha, but why is it this way? So now the Rebbe says, was the Nes only in Adar, or did it start earlier? It was really almost 8 months beforehand. B'chodesh hashlishi hu chodesh Sivan b'shloisha ve'esrim bay chav gimel Sivan v'yikosev b'shem hamelech Achashverosh v'yechtam b'tabas hamelech goymer asher nosna hamelech laYehudim goymer lihikoil v'lamid al nafsham. So, what are you telling me? It started Yud Gimel Adar. It started much earlier, so that's why on Rosh Chodesh Adar we're already b'simcha. We're shnichas Adar marb b'simcha. But if so, then go back earlier. Why dafka Rosh Chodesh Adar? Harei Ramanavshach. Haksiv v'achsim kvar hoye b'chodesh hashlishi was already Sivan. It was almost 8 months earlier. Olam l'poil. Why aren't we sameach then? Ad oz hoye mechusar ma'aser. They weren't really safe yet. They weren't really protected yet. Teida shenal nalotzim hoyu lenal mochamal likoil v'lamd al nafsham v'nikla yudim b'areim goymer l'shloach yod b'mevakshe ra'asam. He brings from the Manas Halevi and other mefarshim that really Achashverosh never really cancelled out his previous gzeira. It wasn't really bittul agzeira on Chav Gimel Sivan. What happened was, the first letter said, you can go and kill the Yidden. The second letters in Chav Gimel Sivan said, to the Yidden, you can go and protect yourself. So, they were still in danger. And even the Alter Rebbe says in Mekutei Torah, in Torah Or, the big Pella, that the Yidden stood in the state of Mesiras Nefesh for almost an entire year. If the Gzeir was in this battle, this was from Nisan, the second day Nisan over there. The whole story happened over there in Pesach, and with Esther was in the second day Pesach. That's why we had in the Suda. So it was a few months, but still, no. The Alter Rebbe says that a whole year almost they stood in the state of Mesiras Nefesh. Why? Because nobody knew what was going to go on. Fine, the government said we can protect ourselves. You have so many goyim that hate us, and they want to kill us, and a few Yidden are going to try to protect themselves. This doesn't help that Chav Gimel Sivan, the king, went ahead and wrote the Igros and said, send it out that the Yidden can protect themselves. V'rak b'Yud Gimel ba'Adar hayanes, or b'Yud al Adar, which is when we celebrate Purim, anachum me'eveim. V'im kain, lama teikev mishenichnas Adar, oid lifnei shoyz ha'atzola. They were still under danger. For 2 weeks, they still wouldn't know what would happen. Kvar marben b'simcha. The truth is, this question is also in Megillas Esther itself. It says, "V'hachodesh asher nefach lahem miyadin l'simcha." It doesn't say hayoim hachodesh. Shekol hachodesh nefach l'simcha. And there's also a halacha about this as well. We know the beginning of Masechtas Megillah, it speaks about Megillah, Nikras, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, whatever, all the different dates. But the Yerushalmi says that if there's no other choice, a person can go back all the way to the beginning of the month. Why? Because it's a chodesh asher nepach lahem. Ki kol ha-chodesh kashal kriyas ha-Megillah. And this is not just a favor from the Yerushalmi. The Rebbe brings on the Ramah. The Ramah says that we can do this in case of such a situation. V'Ramah kasav al zeva hachinog. L'chura, if you think about it, if a guy is in a favor from a situation, maybe they're about, to go off in prison, or a person is visiting someone in prison that you're not sure that somebody's going to get there with a Megillah on Purim. That's Rish Chodesh Adar. according to this Ramah, I'm not passing halacha, but according to this Ramah, you could read the Megillah for him, because they're not sure they're going to be able to hear it and read it then. V'lachura, again, why is a whole month considered a month? Asher nepach lahem, harei atzoloi sarak b'yud gimel. V'kush yezu miteretzes b'loshen Rashi yemei nisim hoyel Yisrael Purim and Pesach l'kamon. That's what Rashi is trying to answer. What is so special about Adar that the entire Chodesh is now become transformed? Gim hasbar bezem b'maymer ha'gemorim kishem. In many places, the Rebbe talks about this kishem. This is a Masechtas Tainus. Talks about the days where you do and you don't fast and whatever. So it's talking about the negative things of Av, and it compares from Av to Adar, which is very strange. If you want to talk about Simcha, shouldn't you go about the other way around? If anything, you should compare Av to Adar, not Adar to Av, and say, just like in Av. So too in others. The Rebbe in other places explains about Yisn but the main thing over here.
And by Shul also, usually you want to do the positive before the Aseh. Usually you do the positive.
You do the B'chlal. Yeah. But over here, the Rebbe is not emphasizing so much about the positive and the negative, even though in other places he talks about it. Here, the main point is, by looking at this kishem, so when we look at the chiyuv of heipach hasimcha in Av, the miyut hasimcha in Av, we can understand the type of marbim b'simcha in Adar. Move on. Shezeh shemarbim b'simcha b'chodesh Adar, v'zeh shemarbim b'simcha b'chodesh Av, b'geder echad heim. I have the Chodesh Av l'chadash machem shoy b'muris built to the tzuyim shedavke b'chodesh Av amru d'mamaytem b'simcha matzinu shnei inyan. Why do we approach it in the month of Av? It's not just the day. It comes Shivasar B'Tammuz, for example, it's just a day. Shivasar B'Tammuz, that day is a bad day. You don't say Mishanichnas Tammuz is memaytem b'simcha. Comes Av. So there's two inyanim. Aleph, huchpele by tzaris, was a lot of tzaris took place in Av, and in Tisha B'Av especially. Beis, hu yoim chayev. In other places, the Rebbe speaks a lot about this idea of yoim chayev, yoim zakai. There are days in the calendar that the very day itself is a sgula for good things, and then there's a day that's a sgula for not. Very famous story with the Magid, that the Malach that came to the Beis Yosef, was Megalim Chidush Torah in his dream, and he told him once it was the date Yutas Kislev. He told him Yom Besurahi. It's a day of good news. Now Yutas Kislev was still going to be in the future. But already the very day of Yutas Kislev, because of what would happen later on, the very day, that very calendar date, is a Yom Zakah, is a special day. So in Chodesh Av and in Tisha B'Av, there's two problems with Tisha B'Av. One problem is, B'chlal, there's a lot of tzaras took place. And another thing is, it's also the day itself is a Yom Chayev. And we'll see the difference between these two. Let's first see why it's Yom Chayev.
No, maybe not.
Wait, just wait, give it one more line. 1 second. Let's see. First of all, let's see about Yom Chayev. Shagam b'sheni charav b'tisha b'av ki megalgon zchus l'yom zakai v'choyva l'yom chayav. So he's saying like this: Sheyesh loymar. 1 second. She'ein zem nechurban abayis b'rishoyna b'yis yom belvad elagam milifnei zeh k'maymer agmar al pasuk vayifka am balayla hu by the chet of the maraglim. They already cried then. So Tisha B'Av haya amlam hakadosh baruch hu atem b'chisam b'chiyah shal chinam v'ani kaveh lechem b'chiyah doyos. Okay, now let's get back to your question. Why is Tisha B'Av considered huchbal by tzaris and on Shivas B'Tammuz was not? So he's mitzayin to the Tosfos. I didn't get a chance to look up the Tosfos. The Tosfos explains the difference between Tisha B'Av and Shivasar B'Tammuz. I'll have to look up the Tosfos to be able to give you a clearer answer.
But what is the It's also the base of English, no?
No, but
Obviously the base of
English.
English.
זה כתוב שבשבע עשר בתמוז כמה דברים קרה גם.
כן. יום חייב, I think
So maybe he's saying it's not such terrible tzaros.
Without what happening.
Or maybe he's also saying that it's... No, he's talking about an aleph. His question is an aleph. What's the huchpalu tzaros? Forget about the yom. What's the huchpalu by tzaros more in Tisha B'Av than Shivasar B'Tammuz? Maybe, like he was saying, the Churban Beis HaMikdash, as terrible as it was, Shivasar B'Tammuz, that they broke in the walls, but still doesn't come to the Beis HaMikdash.
The bet Yom Chayav said Vaday because of what he said, the Meraglim and all the other things. So you could see
That the day itself is a negative day.
But the Huchbal Batzarat, you read the Shulchan Aruch, the Katuv Otev Davar, Shivasar B'Tammuz.
That there's 5 things that happen. So the Rebbe says, the main thing that he wants to say, now let's look at it the other way. Kishem. Just like, if we're saying that in Av there's both these things, Huchpulu Baitzaris and Yom Chayev, so the Kishem must be the same thing in Adar. Lefiza Nimtza Shezeh Shemar Besimcha B'Chodesh Adar Ugam Ke Al Derech Zeh Huchpulu Bainisim Vehu Yom Zakah. So the Rebbe is going to ask, where do we see this? Not just on Yud Gimel Adar, Yud Al Adar. Zel Mashkasav b'Gemara Megillah now, Kivin Shnafel Pur b'Chodesh Adar. So Haman was very happy. Samach Simcha G'dayla. Amar Nafeli Pur b'Yerach Shemeis by Moshe. Again, you see the way the Rebbe is emphasizing the word Chodesh and Yerach, because Haman was first looking to figure out which month. Not the day. He was making 2 separate geirolos. One geirol was the day, whichever day of the month, day of the week, it's a different question. And another geirol was which month.
And you see, because he was, nothing happens in Adar. I mean, he was happy he came out.
Exactly. He was happy as long as it was in that month. Yeah. And the whole month, in Haman's eyes, was impacted by Yom Shemeis by Moshe Rabbeinu. Harei shasi b'sheviel nes Purim b'chodesh Adar hu Yom Zayin Adar dahainu zeh shapur nafal b'chodesh Adar, not the 7th of Adar. It was the entire month. That's when the Goyal came out for. Zeh gufa bitl es gzeres Haman al chodesh zeh u'memeilaya b'chodesh zeh nes hapurim. So the point is that this month, to use an English terminology, was a lucky month. Haman thought it was an unlucky month, and was nisgala, since Moshe Rabbeinu was born in this month, that the month is a lucky month. We learned, I think, about last year about this. Why does it affect the entire month? But that's a different issue. What's so special about Zayin Adar? Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu was born then. What does Moshe Rabbeinu stand for? She'oz noilad Mashiach shel Yisrael she'hoitzias Yisrael megalos Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that saved the Yidden. If this was the month that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, so it's like saying this is the month that cancels out the saving of Yidden. It's the death of saving of Yidden. So that's why Haman was so happy. Saving Yidden is not this month. The guy who saved the Yidden passed away. But that's not what happened. That's not the only thing that happened. It was the day that the one that saved the Yidden was born. So the saving of the Yidden is actually comes out of this month. So thanks to this month, the Yidden were saved. Hari nimtza shebachodesh Adar yeshnam shnei and yonam another. We said before, huchbeloy by nisim v'yom zakai. Zeh chodesh yesh b'yom zakai zayin Adar. There's a day that in itself is a special day. V'huchbeloy by nisim v'agulas. Why? Ki yom zayin Adar hu makar v'siba l'shtei geulas. HaYeshua v'agula m'Mitzrayim v'geulas Purim. Now you're starting to see already why Rashi had to bring this in about Pesach. We're trying to say that Adar, just like Av had Huchbul Tzaris, Adar had Huchbulun by Nisim. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was born in Adar, therefore you had Yitzias Mitzrayim, Pesach. And you had also, because of that, many years later, Purim as well. He wanted to be Maramas. It's the month that gave us Pesach. We had Pesach thanks to the month of Adar. That's not enough of a reason, because then you can ask about Nisan, you could ask about Kislev. Zakai. Shehevi mein Nisan Hoil Yisrael Gamla Pesach. The canal Sheyeshua Yisrael bePesach. Hine Leidosa Haschalasa V'Sibasa Be'Adar Zayin Adar. It all started from there. V'lachein Teikef Mishenichnas Adar Marm Besimcha, because it's the entire month. As we said before, Haman was looking for a month that's negative, and instead he had a month that's positive. So we see that this idea that Moshe Rabbeinu, the haschal of the Gula Mitzrayim, began in Adar is the entire month. That we asked before, who cares about the month? They weren't saved until Yud Gimel. Like the Yerushalmi says, Kinas Purim hischil loy miyem Yud Gimel Adar. Elamiyad betchilas hagzeira kvar hoya muchen hanes. Okay, Dalet. So the Rebbe is going to bring in about an interesting halacha that it says in Shulchan Aruch concerning the idea of tainus. And in Shulchan Aruch, it's, even though most people, to my knowledge, don't do it this way, in Shulchan Aruch it's brought down that people fast on Zayin Adar. And by understanding the meaning and the reason behind the tainus, we'll be able to understand the idea of fasting on Zayin Adar and how that affects or is over or not bestira to the entire month of Adar. These are the days she'iru b'hem tzares laviseinu v'roi lisanes b'hem v'zayin Adar b'soichom kanal yesh lahasbir b'shnei fanim. Because they were tzares days, that's why we fast. And one of the days, like I said in Shulchan Aruch, he says Zayin Adar. What are the two ways how this is explained? Aleph. The days themselves are with a bad mazel, like we said before. Since this day is like muchan for negative things, so we're fasting and we're davening to Hashem to make sure that no more negative and bad things happen on this day. Why do we have to be worried? Yidden are not worried about mazel. They don't care about luck and things like this. Ki afal pishein mazel Yisrael. So the Chazal explained, what does it mean, ein mazel Yisrael? There is a mazel for the Yidden. In other words, things happen according to their mazel, but we're not limited to it. We could change it through Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah, and so on. Not that a bad mazel can't affect us. Kepirish Rashi. So those days that are by nature days that are chayavim in the Jewish calendars, they, again, to use an English term, they're unlucky days. So we fast on an unlucky day to be able to daven to the Eibishter that nothing bad should happen on this day. That is one way of looking at why we fast on certain days that it says in Shulchan Aruch to fast. Base. Another reason is which is the Zayin Adar one. that a person has to, those that are alive, have to always take a lesson from the passing of a tzaddik. So the fasting is not to prevent anything bad from happening, but it's a way to inspire us to take lessons from this day. So we fast to focus our mind on tshuva, on more ruchnistic things, so we learn from this day to improve.
Isn't there a thing usually on Yimei Simcha we don't fast?
Right. Let's get to that in a moment. Actually, we're gonna.
And also, I think Zayin Adar, the Chaver Kedishin, right? Is that what they?
No. Chaver Kedisha doesn't in Tavis. Actually, there's some in Hagim. By us, our Chaver Kedisha, Lubavitch Chaver Kedisha does it in the shortest day of the year, sometime in Tavis. But others do it Zayin Adar. Other Chaver Kedishas do it Zayin Adar. But here he's going to talk a very interesting thing. He's going to touch on what you said. Hanafkemina mishteya azbarisi. The Rebbe, a lot of times when he brings down the Sikha, two different explanations for something, brings out a practical difference if the explanation is this or the explanation is that. And like even the Gemara we have it, Lamai nafkemina, if you say this word or that word. So it says like this. What happens b'yoyim sheyesh b'shnei inyanim gam simcha v'gam hepcha simcha? Let's take the example of Zayin Adar. Zayin Adar is a day of histalkus of tzaddikim. It's a get, and on the other hand, it's a day of simcha because it's the day that Noilad Moshe Rabbeinu. So what are you going to do? Which is more important? Are we going to fast or not? So it depends which reason we fast. If the problem is you're saying the very day itself is an unlucky day, and that's why you're fasting to make sure that nothing unlucky happens, but if you already saw that something good happened on that day, then you know it has nothing to do with the day being a Yom Chayev. Ki mekivin shezeu gam Yom Simcha v'iru b'inyanim toivim harei ze mechiach she'ein ze Yom Chayev. So comes Zayin Adar, you know it's not a Yom Chayev. It can't be a Yom Chayev because a very happy thing occurred. Moshe Rabbeinu's birth that led to being Mashiach Shal Yisrael that took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. So it can't be that, for example, Zayin Adar will be considered be'etzem a Yom Chayev. If it's for tshuva, tshuva has nothing to do with the fact that something good also happened. Regardless, you see such a thing, you have to take a lesson from the passing of the tzaddik, whether it happened on a good day or didn't happen on a good day. You still have to take a lesson from a tzaddik's passing. And how do you me'or yourself? Through fasting. Ki zeh shu gam yom simcha ein bestir l'nat tshuva v'adrava matzinu shebesimchas beis hasheva shemisha le'ra simcha beis hasheva le'ra simcha miyamav. The greatest simcha. What did they sing? What did they say over there? So you see that a time of simcha is not a steer to tshuva. You can have tshuva, you can have simcha. It can go together. Al pizem moving gamin agel zayin adar. Mekivin shemetzinu shu yom simcha. Ad shu yom zaka kazeh. Shegaram l'chol hanes de Purim. V'ad shezeh poyel shekol achoydesh nases man shel mar b'simcha. That's how powerful Zayin Adar is. Moving Shatayin is the Zayin Adar mitam sheboy Moshe Rabbeinu. Ein Neshu Yom Chayev el leftoyach darkei atshuva. V'zeh shebi Yom Zeh Noilad. The fact he was born on Zayin Adar. Harei adrabe zeh Messiah ashat shuva tia ba'ofen naila yoser v'toiv yoser v'tach simcha, like the Rebbe always says, that the higher level of tshuva ilah, is out of simcha. Tshuva tata, a person is upset about what he did wrong. But tshuva ilah is all about becoming closer to Hashem and adding in his connection to Hashem. So it's done out of simcha. Kishem kishol mitzvahs tzarich l'kaima mitach simcha. So therefore, like the Rebbe says in many places, tshuva is no different than any of the other 612. And just like every mitzvah I have to do out of simcha, so tshuva I also have to do out of simcha. And in other places the Rebbe says even more so. that not just I also have to do it out of simcha, but since tshuva is a mitzvah klolis and it's mechaper on all the mitzvahs, so it's even greater than all the mitzvahs, so for sure I have to do it out of simcha. So if the idea of fasting on Zayin Adar has to do with tshuva, so it's still done. Haman was saying it's the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, the month that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. But he didn't know that's the month that Moshe Rabbeinu was born, and the Yom HaLeida took care of the Yom HaMisa. Hainu shegam Yom HaMisa yesh by pe'ula miyom HaLeida, that it affects the day of the birthday as well. Al Pisa moving b'negel l'shana muberes. All of this is to explain the original question. From when are we supposed to be marben b'simcha? Are we supposed to be marben b'simcha in Adar Sheni, or is it also Adar Rishon? Kasa b'magen Avram sheb'shana muberes tainis zayin Adar u'ba'Adar Rishon. And he brings in the footnote that if a person writes in a star Adar and he doesn't say which Adar, so it's automatically Adar Rishon. That's what he brings down from Poskim. That's what he brings down from certain Poskim.
And what's the Zayin? People fasted on Zayin Adar before?
Yeah, it was a common fast. Heitkes we don't do it, but this is it's brought down.
Okay, I thought it was.
People also fast today. Rish Chodesh, Yom Kippur Cotton, people fast. Shemezem move on. Shegam inyan asimcha shu yom zakei u'neiledes Moshe hu gam kim b'zayin Adar Rishon. If you're fasting on Zayin Adar Rishon because you're saying that's the date that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, so then it has to come out that the simcha of the Leida of Moshe had to also be on Zayin Adar Rishon. Kanal Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yoshu and Malish and same Sadikim B'Yom L'Yom, that earlier in the Sikha the Rebbe brings down that Inyan about it's the Zayin Adar and Zayin Adar. You can't say his birthday was in Zayin Adar Sheni or something or
because usually birthdays are Adar Sheni and Yotzets are Adar Rishon, but it doesn't fit in with the Malish and the same Shul.
That's talking about if he was born in a star and Adar. That's what you're saying. But here the question is was Moshe born in Shana Muberes, not a Shana Muberes, not going to get into that. And did he pass away in a Shana Muberes? Exactly. So once you say Zayin Adar Rishon for the Tainus, so it has to be for the other. Whatever would have been the reason, the Rebbe would have found the reason to make simcha earlier anyway. Metama bira nal the Rashi. Mekiven shebechodesh zeh. Yesh hayoim zakei de Zayin Adar. Sheiv yemei Nisan Yisrael Purim and Pesach. It caused both of those things. And then in the footnote is where he says, but that year of the Nes of Purim, he brings it was a Shana Muberes, and the Nes was an Adar Rishon. And then the Chassam Sofer says that they were going to be making an extra month that year, and Bez decided not to make it an extra month. But either way, the whole idea was when Haman had in mind to destroy the Eden, even according to the Chassam Sofer, that he decided not to be Ma'aber Rosh Hashanah, it was the original plan was going to be Adar Rishon.
Maybe it says the name from Yishami, the Gzeres Haman Hayal Adar Rishon.
Right, that's right. That's exactly what we're saying. Befrat sheyimei Nisan Yisrael yeshem kvar b'chodesh Adar Rishon. Why? Bepurim v'shishim Purim Cotton. Sheyayim and Nes v'atzal. Those are also considered days of Nes and Atzal because they're a miniature Purim. Afal Pisha can move, and the Rebbe says, "Ein ze b'doim al amar b'simcha sheba'adar sheba'y chag Purim mamish she'oz yeshram ha'imei Nisan Yisrael b'poel mamish." So the Rebbe adds this little idea. Don't think that the marbin b'simcha of Adar Rishon is the same quality like the marbin b'simcha of Adar Sheni. Marbin b'simcha of Adar Rishon is fine and good, But L'Poyel, since we celebrate Purim in the second Adar, so this whole thing is also a clear that's brought down the Mefarshim. Which, when we have a Shana Muberes, which Adar is considered the real Adar, and which is considered the Haysafa? So some say, well, look, Purim is in the second Adar. Purim is in the second Adar. That means that's the real Adar. That means Adar Rishon is like the stepchild, the Osaran, the second place. But they say no, not that way. The only reason why they put Purim in the second Adar is because they wanted to have the Geula of Purim next to the Geula of Pesach. In other words, if not for that, Purim would have been an Adar Rishon. Why would it have been an Adar Rishon? Because Adar Rishon is the real Adar. And the Adar Sheni is something they added to it.
From this note, it may be like that.
Exactly. From this note, it comes out that way. Then the Rebbe says about, in a similar vein, he brings this is from somewhere else. I don't think this is from that same Sikha, but it's an interesting thing anyway. He says, that over there, the Ramah says like this: the last halacha in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim talks about Purim Katan and Shushim Purim Katan, because it goes first it goes the cycle of the day from Hashkamas HaBoker, the whole Seder of Orach Chaim, till it goes through the whole day. Then it goes to the week of Shabbos. Then it goes to Yom Tovim, and it goes the final Yom Tovim that talks about is Chanukah, Megillah, Purim, and then the final halachas in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim is the halachas of Purim Katan. And he discusses over there, is there a chiyuv to add b'mishta in Purim Katan? Should you add a little bit? Should you not add? Like in Rosh Chodesh, it also is brought down a person should eat an extra special thing on Rosh Chodesh, a special food to add something, a special dish, or at least to wash, whatever they wouldn't ordinarily do on a regular day. There's a mitzvah to be marva b'suda on Rosh Chodesh. Some people, it's not some Shalbavitch minig, have a custom that when it comes to, like this kviyas, when it's Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, so they have like an extra kugel. Because the regular kugel is for Shabbos, and then they have an extra kugel because it's Rosh Chodesh also. You want to make, in other words, the point is you want to show a special simcha for Rosh Chodesh. So the Ramah talks about what is the din? Is there a chiyuv? Is there not a chiyuv? Essentially, he says, even if there's not really a chiyuv, but still in all, toiv leiv mishtatamid. It's always good to celebrate and add and to add in simcha. And that's the conclusion of the entire Orach Chaim. In other places, the Rebbe speaks about it, how this is like the point. The point of Orach Chaim is to lead you to the idea of toiv leiv mishtatamid. Always a yid has to be b'simcha. So therefore, the Rebbe is now applying this word. We have a question. Should you celebrate in Adar Rishon, start being mar b'simcha, or should you wait till Adar Sheni be mar b'simcha? So he says like this. Based on what the Ramah says concerning Purim Katan, that even though it's not that clear if you should be Moshe Besuda on Purim Katan, still in all, better to be Moshe Toiv Leiv Mishtatamid. So the Rebbe says that same principle is not just Gabbe Purim Katan, but the same principle is Gabbe the Adar Rishon. Umezem moving, Kashiyashna is a suffix, if you should increase in Simcha or not, Haklal hu toiv leiv mishtatamid. Ulahoisiv psak din zeh koisiv aramah bekesher v'shayches la'adar rishon. Should be yoyim yudal adar rishon purim katan yesh laharvis k'tzas v'suda u'masayim toiv leiv mishtatamid. So therefore, it makes sense to be marb b'simcha starting already today by Yal v'yavai, benching tomorrow Shabbos, 60 days of simcha like the Rebbe said in Tafshin Nun Beis. That just like we have the when something is not kosher, it falls into kosher food, it's bottled by shishim. So the same thing, you have shishim yemei simcha, that should be mevatel, everything negative, and we should finally have the geula, should finally come already tonight. It should be already in Shalayim for Shabbos.